It's crazy how much the Democrats really are the villain in this story. Maybe not quite the villain, I guess, when you have this version of the Republican Party. But, up there, like, aiding and abetting the villain more than anything else, shooting itself in the foot. Like, I just can't believe how pathetic it is. 3 of the same fights in a row, and they couldn't adapt. Exact same fights. Could not adapt.
And what's crazy is that's actually the exact pattern of history, including in Nazi Germany, where it's like you have a liberal democracy that essentially gives way to the rise of straight up fascism because liberal democracy is unable to manage its inadequacies, it's unable to message effectively, and in the face of somebody who is fear-mongering and demagoguing, they simply refuse to do anything to prevent the rise of fascism. And this is the kind of thing that leftists have been warning about, that it's like the liberal approach to everything, politics, news media, the economy, running the fucking government, all of it is insufficient. And so from a historical lens, this is almost kind of inevitable. I mean, it is shocking that Trump lost and then won again. But yeah, I mean, the broader the lens gets, the more you see that this is actually the pattern of history. And Trump probably knows enough about these fascist regimes that's why he ran again, is because he knew that there was a chance that, that just the liberal government and the liberal state of affairs was weak enough that he could continue dismantling it and would ultimately be even more successful than he was before. And that's exactly what has happened. A thought that I just had, that's something that Biden could do. Obviously, there's a question now of what's Biden going to do in the lame duck. Probably nothing. Obama did nothing last time before Trump took power. Biden is almost certainly not going to do anything. But one thing that strikes me that he could do when it comes to the whole issue of presidential immunity, and that being like essentially unlimited power for Trump, especially given that his agenda is to do mass deportations. The idea of him having immunity going into a project like that is genuinely terrifying. But what Biden could do, it occurs to me, he could go to the Republican-controlled House and the still Democratic Senate, and he could say, we are going to pass a bill that ratifies into the Constitution that the president does not have immunity under these stipulations. If we don't pass this bill, I'm going to use my presidential immunity to put 10 more Supreme Court justices on the court. That's the first thing that occurs to me. But something, I mean, he should say, we need to codify that the president does not have full immunity, or I'm going to use my presidential immunity to do something that the Republicans really, really, really are not going to like. And I mean, I think that would work. That strikes me as something he could do. He doesn't have the fucking balls to do it. But if there's one thing that I could get the fucking Democratic Party to hear me about right now, it would be that. Because that's the kind of leverage that the president does have, especially now that he has full immunity. And the Democrats are just never willing to use it. So I would like to see Biden take some steps to try to put some guardrails in place during this election. It strikes me that he could use some ultimatums like that in order to get it done.
Jesus, dude, I've been so depressed and worried about these next 4, hopefully only 4 years under Donald Trump that I kind of forgot about his presidential immunity thing they determined. Oh my God, that's so much scarier to think about. Before I was just thinking about that, about applying to his, past felonies. I didn't think about what he could do with it moving forward, because I think I was not processing the idea of really having him as president again. Trump with immunity in power on his second term while controlling the House and the Senate is so scary. You're absolutely right about Biden. That would be the most baller move he could pull, and some kind of tiny saving grace for his whole shitty term to, on the way out, at least step up and do something. But he won't. You're right. He's not the guy to do it, and this isn't the version of the Democratic Party to do it. It would be bad, especially if he said, we're going to pass this, and if we don't, I'm going to use that power to do this. I really like that, but I doubt we'll see it. It would be awesome. And it starts to get into a weird territory. It's like, well, if I don't take away this immunity, I'm going to use this immunity to do this. Where it almost feels like having a genie and trying to wish for more wishes.
Yeah, that's what drives me insane about the Democrats, and honestly Biden specifically, is like, that's the kind of shit, that's politics, man. That's how you get shit done. You don't get shit done by like, let's all roll up our sleeves and join each other at the cafeteria lunch table and talk about how we can agree. Fuck that. You gotta break people's ankles. You gotta go to their fucking house when they're not expecting you to show up and be like, listen, Jack, we got some shit we're gonna fucking talk about, and nobody else knows I'm here, and if you were to disappear tonight, trust me, bro, I already got it taken care of. I've already talked to the press. They know what to say. So given that, we have some things that we need to discuss about the future of the Republican Party or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the kind of shit that Trump does. I honestly believe that I don't remember who the fucking Supreme Court justice, what the name was of the justice that stepped down while Trump was president before Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, the one that he replaced with Brett Kavanaugh. But it was a Democratic Supreme Court justice who all of a sudden just decided to step down. It was crazy, and then Trump obviously got to replace him. And then there was this clip on TV where Trump was like walking with this guy and he's like patting him on the back, and the dude stops. Trump says something to him where the dude stops in his tracks and looks at him and says something like, you know, what did you just say? And Trump just like keeps patting him on the back and just keeps walking. So there's something going on there, you know, I don't know what, and we've never heard anything about it again in the media. But I would be damned if Trump did not force that guy to step down, found some way to threaten his family or found some information on him through fucking Jeffrey Epstein or whatever, and forced him to step down so he could replace him. And it's like, is that despicable? Is it horrifying? Yes. It's also politics. And like, yes, we would all prefer to live in a world, in a government where that type of stuff isn't going on. But guess what? When you're up against Trump, it is what's going on. That is what you're up against. So you got to fight. And it's like, Biden has had so many opportunities to do that. And Manchin was the main one for me, where I was like, you guys need to cut this dude's legs off. Like, there's no way that a person who is supposedly in the Democratic Party is being allowed to just tank the entire agenda like this. You cannot tell me there's not some way you can get some leverage over this guy to bring him to heel. That's what the fuck these political leaders are supposed to be doing, and they refuse to do it. And nothing has pissed me off more about Biden than that, aside from maybe the genocide. But even that's another example of the same thing, where he's just refusing to use his fucking leverage against Bibi Netanyahu. That'll probably be the defining aspect of his presidency, if not this current Democratic Party in general, is just absolute refusal to use your leverage in the face of utter...
I think that was Anthony Kennedy, right? And he's not one of the Kennedys, right? It's Kennedy not related to the dynasty, I believe. Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that, but I remember seeing that clip around that time, and he 100% said something to him, probably threatening him or, you know, whatever, revealing what he had on him and making it very clear he had to do what he said. And yeah, that is politics. And I understand the whole not wanting to get dirty and roll around in the mud, take the high ground, keep that moral superiority. That's great, and that's what you want in a politician, ideally speaking. But we don't live in an ideal world. You have to fight fire with fire, and when you're dealing with someone as despicable as Donald Trump, you're gonna have to get a little dirty, or you're going to lose, just plain and simple. And with something as important as the fucking presidency of the United States, or, you know, the future of this country, unfortunately, we can't we can't stand just taking a moral victory here. We have to actually stop these people it's war. It's plain and simple. It's war for this country, and we have to be able to stand up and fight them at their level. Trump's doing that, likely doing that, blackmailing him or whatever he has is exactly the type of thing that should be able to be done to Trump. Really, who has more skeletons in their closet than Donald fucking Trump? I mean, that is the biggest walk-in closet you ever saw, full of skeletons, and no one can do anything to him. You couldn't do that to him because everyone knows about his disgusting fucking crimes and doesn't even care. So you really have to take it to that next level. Biden was never willing to do that, but Biden is emblematic of the entire Democratic Party at this point, unwilling to stand up and do the right things. And that's why I really don't see a future where we have a Democratic president again, unless there's an insane reform to the policy. I don't know. I really think we either need the Democratic Party completely reformed or ideally a real new legitimate third party that can win built up over the next 4 years. But that seems even less likely. I don't know at this point which seems more likely, the Democrats getting the heads out of their ass, or for the first time in a long time, a third party being relevant in this country.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think the most likely thing for the Democratic Party is that somehow they avoid being absolutely obliterated over the next 4 years and still manage to, run somebody else in 2 years and then in the next presidential election. And it's probably, if that's the case, then probably nothing will change, because unless the corporate hacks that control the party are completely ousted, like viciously, then it's just nothing's going to change within the party, because those people always rein it back. There are always these moments of possible change within the Democratic Party. It's happened multiple times just over the last 8 years, and they never, it never goes in the right direction. Things always settle back in a more corporatist direction, because if there's anything that the Democratic operatives know how to do, it's do that. It's take a moment of uncertainty and just steer everything back to the status quo, regardless of how many problems you're sweeping under the rug. And that's how things have gotten steadily worse this entire Trump era. So as far as whether a third party is possible, honestly, I think if Bernie makes a big push for it, which it looks like he might, then it is possible. And if Bernie, if there looks like some viable ways that we can start building that dual power, then I would follow Bernie on that, because I think he's one of the only leaders we've seen in this entire era that has any type of ability to lead a movement like that. He's by far made the most progress of any other leader on the left in terms of normalizing left-wing ideas, creating nearly at least getting the Democratic nomination twice, based on these progressive ideas. So if he can do that, he can start to build dual power elsewhere. I'm sure there's a reason he has decided not to do that, but that seems where he's leaning now. We tried this Democratic Party experiment. It's not working because the wrong people are always going to be in the way, and they're always going to take money from the same people that are controlling the Republican Party, and it just ruins our ability to do anything different from them. And so, I do think it's possible for a real third party to emerge, but there's just a lot of organizing that needs to be done in between election cycles. And, there have been people who have been trying that over the last couple cycles, and Andrew Yang tried it. Obviously, there's the Green Party, which never goes anywhere. There's a couple other, meager attempts at third parties that have popped up. But, Bernie Sanders strikes me as the only one who has enough cultural cachet that he could really lead a lot of people towards a third party movement. But it has to happen now. It has to happen between the elections, not before the elections, because that's the part that doesn't work, never works.